اصحى يا نايم وحد الدايم لا إله إلا الله رمضان كريم.
Welcome everyone to the Ramadan Revival Podcast. A big Ramadan Mubarak to you, and may Allah accept from me and you, Ameen. This is Khadija, your host. Sit back, join us during your suhoor or iftar, and come on a journey with us as we share with you our own personal Ramadan and Eid experiences as a convert. Grab your cup of halal goodness when you break your fast and join us for the Ramadan Revival Podcast.
Oh, hey. Yeah.
Because this is a very Canadian special, right?
Oh, yes.
Very Canadian.
Very
West Coast.
And I'm like, Toronto over here.
It's all right. We accept you.
Yes. Come into our tribe.
Yes.
Thank you. Actually, I'd love to. I've never been to Vancouver or just the West Coast. Can you guys believe that?
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I haven't been to the East Coast, so.
Oh, yeah. I was going to say, I've never been to Toronto. Like,
You guys have never been to Toronto. That's such a Canadian thing. Like, you're born and raised in Canada, but you've never been to the other side of Canada.
yeah.
Anyway, a big salam alaikum, ladies. Welcome to the very first Ramadan Revival Podcast. Today, I've got Stephanie joining us, who is actually one of our admins, and from episode 38, and Queenie from episode 41. Stephanie, give us a little quick intro about yourself.
Yeah. Salam alaikum. So I'm Stephanie. I am Canadian. I'm currently living in BC, and I just moved back from Australia, and I'm getting my Canadian feet back under me.
Ooh, welcome back.
Oh, thank you.
And what about you, Queenie? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Queenie. I am a graphic designer, finishing her degree this April-ish. Yeah.
Inshallah. And you're also from Canada, right?
Yes.
Canada Ramadan special.
Woo!
All right, let's get started, shall we? Okay, you guys. So I want to know, what did you know about Ramadan when you first converted? And what were your expectations versus the actual reality?
So what I knew about Ramadan is that I am starving myself to death. But that's just first glance when I was researching Ramadan. I didn't know the deeper meaning of everything. So there was just, I don't know, maybe 5 months into researching Islam, I was thinking about maybe fasting Ramadan just for an experiment for myself, whether I could do it or not, because I'm a huge foodie. I didn't think that I could actually do it, but in the third day of Ramadan, I took my shahada.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Yeah, 3 days after I took my shahada, and I'm like, I don't think I can deny this anymore. I am Muslim at heart. What am I delaying this for? So I just took the shahada.
So your expectation was sort of, okay, Ramadan is all about starving yourself. So what was the actual reality?
The reality was it was so smooth sailing. I didn't have any complications with it at all. I woke up early to eat suhoor, and then I went back to sleep, and then I woke up again and just carried on with my day. I was also fasting while working my part-time job. I thought I would be very fatigued and just really out of it, but alhamdulillah, it was a really nice experience.
Alhamdulillah, always good to hear when things turn out better than we expected. MashaAllah. So, Stephanie, what about you? Expectations versus reality of Ramadan when you first converted?
Well, I actually fasted 2 Ramadans before I converted. So I fasted them because I had friends that were Muslim and they didn't want to do it alone. So what I knew was it was sort of a community based, or I thought it was a community based sort of practice. And I understood that there was a closeness you could reach with Allah if you were fasting. I didn't really enjoy fasting. It felt like I was starving myself. The first year that I tried fasting with one of my friends, I was horribly sick the first few days. Like just my body, no. But I didn't feel sort of any sweetness that my friends talked. It just sort of felt like a marathon starvation session.
Right.
So my expectation of Ramadan, when after I said my shahada, like I figured I wouldn't be able to do it. And that was the one thing that I was most worried about. But then my first Ramadan, it's the easiest thing I've ever done. It's like once I took the shahada and I started fasting was just so easy. And alhamdulillah, it's always been easy for me. Like I don't usually feel hungry. Like I feel sort of a sweetness to it. I feel additional focus. So I don't know if it's sort of a mindset or what it was, but sort of the apprehension, the first day I actually fasted as a Muslim, the apprehension went away because it was just such an easy, pleasant thing to do.
So as soon as the intention changed, it got easier.
It was like my intention before was to fast for my friends to keep them company. Whereas once I was Muslim, I was like, all right, this is a part of my faith. It's something I have to do. It's non-negotiable, and I'm not doing it for anyone else. I'm doing it for me, and I'm doing it because Allah's asked me to do it. So I think sort of, conviction and mindset, intention, like you said, that's kind of that was the big shift for me. Like I've had days where I've totally slept through suhoor and, I've fasted the day, no issue. Like, it's amazing what happens once the intention is correct.
Right. Sort of similar to Queenie's experience.
Yeah.
Okay, so those were expectations versus reality. Did you guys find that, preparing for Ramadan would actually help you have better expectations or better realities? Did you guys prepare, for Ramadan, or do you guys prepare for Ramadan?
Yeah, I have to be honest, my first Ramadan, I didn't really plan, like I didn't do sunnah fast or anything like that, because I was honestly just so afraid I wouldn't be able to do it. I guess I was afraid I was going to set myself up for some kind of failure if I tried any fasting before. I think the only things that I really did to prepare was I had sort of heard of creating like a planner for yourself, sort of planning out what you wanted to do during Ramadan. And I'd watched some different YouTube videos and stuff about, reading, say, 5 pages of Quran after every prayer, and, reading other beneficial books. And because I'm a big reader, so that was, for me, it was getting my hands on a couple of books that I wanted to read over the course of the month, and sort of just planning out when I was going to sort of do my reading. I also found where I wanted to do Taraweeh. Like I decided that my first Ramadan, I was going to do as much as I possibly could. I think I also set myself a new surah to learn, if I remember correctly. I wanted to learn one new surah. So I kind of planned out like a couple of things that I wanted, I guess, to get out of it. But that was kind of it. I think I plan a lot more now for Ramadan, like down to like what I'm going to eat. But that first Ramadan, it was kind of like, I don't really know what I'm doing. I was just kind of taking advice from different reverts that I listened to on YouTube. And I just sort of set myself a kind of a simple schedule of reading and going to Taraweeh, and obviously like when am I going to wake up? And that was it. I was doing my PhD at the time.
Oh, mashallah.
So I was just finishing it, I guess. So I was busy, and then subsequent ones I was working. So I was kind of just fitting in all the sort of extra worship, I guess, in around.
Right.
Yeah.
And what about you, Queenie?
I just watched YouTube videos of what is the quickest snack for suhoor. Backtracking again, I am like a foodie, so then I only search stuff relating to food. So I saw this video. I think her name's Daniela. I don't know. So she was like, yogurt, dates. I'm like, where do I find dates? These are so foreign to me right now.
Oh, yeah.
Cucumbers, hummus. I think I heard of hummus at that time. I don't think I'm that uncultured.
For a foodie, I think you should know what hummus is.
But yeah, there was hummus, a couple like quick sandwiches, and she said that we shouldn't eat like instant ramen because that just sucks all the water within your system because you're not drinking throughout the day. But she does it anyways because she craves it.
Oh, wow.
I don't think I did that much preparation compared to Stephanie. Like when I was hearing all her stuff, it's like, wow, she is really productive.
I think for me it was like that sort of like first year, you know, like when you first become a revert, you just want to go hard. I was like, all right, I'm gonna give her.
Yeah.
You know, but I didn't think about food. I didn't think about what to eat.
Mhm.
And that didn't come into play until sort of like the second year when I realized that probably my suhoors that I was having weren't best. Like they weren't, I was finding that I would sort of get hungry closer to Maghrib time, which most of us usually do. But I've since sort of figured out other foods to eat. The hunger pains don't usually come. And I've also found my favorite date. So
Oh, what is it?
Nice.
I'm a big fan of medjool.
Oh.
But there's also these dates that I'm pretty certain they come from Saudi and they're all like packaged together in a like a block.
Yes, and they're like drenched in syrup.
Yes.
That sounds so
Yes.
good.
Oh, that is my jam, but it's so hard to get a hold of here. Those are my favorite, absolute favorite when I can get them. But otherwise, it's medjool dates because that's the easiest date to get, I found. So
Right. So, Queenie, you said that you prepared a lot for the food. What about other things?
I think I went to the masjid to get the English translation of the Quran, and they had a couple of pamphlets as well because I did took my shahada during Ramadan, and they were kind enough to give me pamphlets about Islam, like making sure if that's what I wanted to do, make sure that no one's having an influence over me, obviously. Yeah. So I just found some speakers on YouTube that I really like to watch.
Okay. So, we talked a little bit earlier about your expectations versus reality on Ramadan when you first converted. So, I want a further elaboration on your Ramadan.
At first, it was exciting to do because it was an experiment. But then later on, it just got really lonely because my family would eat first and I would be always eating by myself. And that continues to be the case till today because I still live with my family. I don't
Right.
have the monies. Vancouver is expensive. Yeah, I think overall it was a really good experience if I don't focus on the
Passing the mic to Stephanie.
well, thank you.
negative.
I mean, my first Ramadan was, I think, a lot like Queenie's. That I think it was really good. Like I felt rejuvenated at the end of it, and I felt sort of, because it's probably the first time I really sort of felt the community, like standing in Terawi and having all these sisters around me, and seeing just the emotion that came from some of the sisters. Like it was really, like it had a really positive impact on me. But like the loneliness was definitely a factor. You know, I'd wake up in the morning. I lived with two other girls. Neither of them were Muslim, so I would get up on my own and, have suhoor, and it was kind of a nice ritual preparing it and sitting there and eating it. But about halfway through Ramadan, I was like, this is actually really lonely. And I'd see sort of my friends posting pictures of the suhoors they were having with their families or talking about their moms making stuff. And,
Yes.
and that was hard, knowing that I wasn't going to have that, wasn't potentially ever going to have that. And And I mean, breaking fast, I was, alhamdulillah, really fortunate because I went to Taraweeh at a mosque in downtown Melbourne that provided iftar every night. And I went to that mosque, so I would break fast with sisters that I knew that I'd taken my shahada with. So sort of the end of the day was nice until you left Taraweeh and you went home alone.
Yeah.
And then it hammered it back in that you are alone. Like, I didn't really have, I did get invited. I think the first year I was invited to quite a few actually iftars that friends had. And then we would go to Taraweeh together, which was really good. We did have the ritual of coffee before Taraweeh so we could stay awake. But yeah, I mean, I think it was the first Ramadan was a really good Iman boost, but also it brought up a lot of things that had worried me about reverting, like not having that family aspect for these big events in our faith. So
Yeah.
there was good and there was bad. It doesn't swing one way or the other. It's kind of in the middle, if that makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
I almost feel like you'll never really have that perfect Ramadan. Like maybe you'll have 1 year where it's perfect, everything works out, and then the other 2 years it's not going to be perfect. Like that's just life, you know what I mean? So I think as long as you can experience 1 or 2 really, really beautiful Ramadans, I think that's alhamdulillah, you know what I mean? Speaking of which, did you guys have a memorable Ramadan that really sticks out to you? Was there a Ramadan that you've ever experienced that was just like, wow, so memorable? And it could be a positive memory or a not so positive memory.
Which Ramadan is most memorable? It's hard to say because they kind of all blend together. There's not really one that really sticks out to me because I have been spending my Ramadans alone most of the time, and it's really hard to find a Muslim sister that you vibe with. You guys can just talk about whatever and you're not going to get judged for it, and just have that kind of companionship within Ramadan. And like, it's hard for me just to like even go to the masjid I couldn't even go to Taraweeh because like my parents going to be like, why are you going out so late? I mean,
Right.
like, I have Asian parents. You can't really do that. Yeah. So I couldn't really get that high Iman connection with Allah during Ramadan. Like the most that I could do is maybe accomplish listening to the whole Quran with English translation and Arabic for Ramadan, and that's about it. Yeah. I'm a lonely Muslim. Do appreciate it in some ways, but it's just nice to just have that companionship to bounce conversations off of, like, oh, this happened to me today, and you just really want to talk about that and like go into a deeper conversation about like, oh, I heard this verse in the Quran today and I really reflected with it. And sometimes it's just really hard to do that by yourself. And if you have another perspective of that said verse or whatever that you want to talk about, it's just a nice conversation, right?
Well, one thing that is really beautiful about this life is that nothing is permanent. Everything is temporary. I mean, that can be a beautiful thing and also a very not so beautiful thing. But the beautiful thing is what you're experiencing now, inshallah, it's just temporary. And you will be able to experience, inshallah, Ramadan the way that you hope for. Just remember the now is not forever. And passing the mic to Stephanie.
I mean, I feel like I probably should say the most memorable Ramadan was the first one after I got married. But I don't know. It's sort of, it's like after we got married, Ramadan was, I guess maybe it is the most memorable because it was so different from the first two I'd had, because there's somebody else now in your space and they've got their own like suhoor rituals, and they're kind of, the way that they worship not necessarily is different, but like I'm a reader, my husband is a listener.
Mhm.
So, he really liked to listen to YouTube videos and stuff during Ramadan, which was something that I never did. I always just sort of sat in a corner and did a lot of quiet sort of reading and reflection.
Right.
So I think sort of our first Ramadan was maybe the most memorable because it was sort of figuring out sort of what was going to work for us as a family and creating our own sort of family, and well, traditions really, because my husband grew up in Italy where there wasn't sort of a lot of Muslims. Like, it's not like growing up in a Muslim country where, it's a big deal, right? Like, it's Italy, it's very Catholic, and they're really racist and they don't really like anything that ain't Catholic. And so he didn't grow up sort of with a lot of traditions, and I obviously didn't have any because I was a revert. So, one thing, like negotiating what we were going to make for suhoor. So a combination of what I liked and a combination of things that he grew up with his dad actually making for suhoor that were Egyptian, like traditionally Egyptian. And so that was probably kind of the big thing, was figuring out what works. So we do, I have sort of quiet time, but we sit down and we pick a series that we want to watch. Because they do, lots of different scholars do like Ramadan
Specials, yeah.
specials, we sit down and we decide ahead of time what one we're going to do, or we talk about our plans and stuff. So it was probably the most memorable, is sort of realizing that I had somebody else that I could kind of share the experience with. But it was sort of a shift. Like, I appreciate having that time alone. And I did sort of definitely realize that you can't just, when you get married, and we don't have kids yet, but inshallah, if we have kids, you're not going to have that alone time again for that quiet introspection. And it's more like a shared religious experience, I guess.
Right.
So I kind of realized I was missing things. But then on the other hand, this past Ramadan, with it being in lockdown, was hugely memorable in a way, because I really disliked it. It's not that I couldn't go to Taraweeh. It reminded me what it was like to be a revert that first year, being completely alone and having zero community. There's no Taraweeh. There was, just my husband and I had that one other person, which is more than a lot of reverts have. But it was nice in a way because it was memorable because there was nothing external to drive your ibadah.
Right.
You're not going to a mosque. No one has seen you do anything. There's no push to get up and do Taraweeh. You have to push yourself to do it. And so that was also super memorable. Just sort of, and it's something my husband and I both reflected on, that Ramadan was all about us sort of pushing each other. And, you really realize how much effort you want to put in to it and how much of it is really driven by those around you.
Oh, mashallah.
I gotta be honest, like, I'm looking forward to this Ramadan because I suspect where we are, we're going to be in some kind of a lockdown. We're not going to have Taraweeh again.
I think that is a really important thing that you said, that you brought up, because I feel like a lot of people think that Ramadan is sort of like a community event. But at the end of the day, the beauty of Ramadan is actually spending it one-on-one with you and Allah. You know what I mean? I feel like the fact that you are able to sort of take that initiative and worship Allah one-on-one and not have to depend on the community as a whole, that sort of sets the new bar for after Ramadan, so that you will be able to do these things by yourself without, the community. It's sort of like, okay, I was able to pray qiyam in lockdown by myself during Ramadan. I can still do that. Like, I don't need the community influence to be able to do that. And that's when, intention, the intentions comes really into play. And so this will be your second Ramadan with your husband.
It'll be it'll be sort of the second one, and we're, like, who knows what's going to happen, with
Right.
COVID, and we just can't see Tarawih happening. So is it going to be like the last one? Do you know what I mean? Like, is it going to be just sort of the two of us? And how's it going to look? Like, we're in a totally different city, and
Oh, yeah. That's crazy.
yeah, like, we're, trying to kind of figure out what does the traditions look like now,
Right.
because we're not in Australia anymore.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to this one. I've got a feeling this could be the next most memorable. You realize how much time you spend socializing during Ramadan,
Yes.
and I definitely realized, thanks to the lockdown Ramadan we just had, how much time we sort of waste socializing that could be spent in ibadah. And I found I was actually able to achieve I don't know if I would say a lot more, but maybe more focused. Whereas, like, if you're running around to sort of iftaars, you're not really focused on that. Like, it's Bismillah, stuff my face.
Right.
And then it's talking with people, and then you do Tarawih, and then you talk again, and then you leave. Like, it's not, whereas when it's just sort of you and your husband,
Right.
we would sort of watch something Islamic while we ate, and then we'd pray Tarawih, and then we'd end, the night reading Quran, or him helping me memorize a surah or something. Like, there was just a lot more concentrated effort in our worship.
So this Ramadan is going to be definitely a new experience for you guys.
Oh, very, very new. Like, it's still, like, we're still finding our groove. Like, we've only been married 2 years. We're still figuring out it. It's still really early stages when you think about it.
Right.
Like, currently I'm trying to buy decorations for the house to decorate the house for Ramadan.
Right.
And I think that comes from growing up in a house where Christmas was like a super big thing. There'd be all these decorations and stuff, and you had that anticipation for Christmas. And it's one thing that I miss, I guess, is not having anything around me that indicates that a holiday's about to happen. Like, it's not, and I don't sort of mean holiday and like I got a day off, but like, literally, like, holy days. Like, there's no indication that something amazing is about to happen. There's no sort of excitement, and it's one thing that I want to start now, just for me to kind of feel that excitement for the month, even like for both Eids, really, even leading up to Eids, getting ready the house. And I want to sort of have traditions in place before we have kids, if we have kids, so it's not like a sudden forced, let me try to get you excited about a holiday that the rest of the country really doesn't celebrate.
Right.
Like, I try to kind of get the house ready before Ramadan starts, like clean it, and just, it's like welcoming
Ramadan.
Yeah, exactly. Welcoming Ramadan, and getting sort of in that headspace where I'm not going to spend like all the time cooking and cleaning, all this kind of stuff. My time's actually supposed to be with me and Allah. And like, I want to kind of get that atmosphere going.
Yeah, of course. Totally makes sense.
Yeah.
All right, moving along. Your favorite Ramadan routine. What is it? Do you have one?
Favorite Ramadan routine. When I saw this question, I had a lot of trouble thinking what my favorite routine is. I do like to try to complete all of my sunnah prayers, which is something that I don't know if I'd call that a routine or a goal. I guess it's routine because if you're doing it before and after every prayer, because I work full time, it's not always possible for me to get them all in, because I may not have enough sort of time to complete the full set. And that is actually probably the one thing that I enjoy doing most during Ramadan, is actually doing all of those sunnah prayers. So I guess that's sort of, if you can call that a routine, that's my favorite routine.
Ooh, really good routine. Because it's like not too much, but it's enough,
It's enough, yeah. I definitely at the beginning would bite off more than I could chew. Like, I used to be just like hell-bent on finishing the entire Quran during Ramadan and never actually managed it. And this past Ramadan, I decided I wasn't going to try to read the whole thing. My goal was to read just 5 pages a day. I sort of realized that it's not that we shouldn't push ourselves, but it's that those small sort of regular acts of worship are more pleasing to Allah than like go big or go home attitude, right? For me, I've tried to incorporate things into my Ramadan that I know I'm going to be able to do afterwards. Like I try every day to still read sort of 5 pages of Quran. Like it's a manageable amount for me to get through. And sometimes I don't, but the act of always reading Quran every day is something I carry over from Ramadan. And then I ramp it up a bit during Ramadan. I don't pray all of my sunnahs all the time. I try to during Ramadan, but then the rest of the time I pray my Fajr and I pray Isha sunnahs. So yeah, it's sort of like my routine is usually like the main routine for Ramadan is the sunnah prayers and then a regular number of pages after every prayer of Quran.
That's like more than enough, mashallah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember sort of the first couple of years just trying to do everything under the sun, like learning multiple du'as and multiple new surahs and everything. And that's like drastically reduced. To last Ramadan, I learned 2 surahs and a dua. Yeah, alhamdulillah. But to be honest, like the dua, I've successfully forgotten that dua now. It's one of those things, like I learned it specifically for like praying in the last 10 nights. And I have this problem that when I try to cram to memorize something, it doesn't stick, particularly with Arabic. And so once the 10 nights sort of passed and I stopped sort of doing like regular qiyam, the dua went poof. So what I find sort of more effective is to learn like a surah, because I know I'm going to use it like regularly. You know, it's going to be, I'm praying 5 times a day, so it's going to be in there at some point. But I try to set things that are like actually realistic for the time and the energy that I actually have in a day.
Yes, being realistic, setting realistic goals is something that we really, really need to keep in mind, especially for someone who is, you know, a new Muslim or just converted like a couple of months ago. Or even for someone who converted like last year. I think keeping it simple and just do what you can.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
You'll just burn out.
Yeah, and then you feel like you're not a good enough Muslim. You feel guilty and disappointed in yourself. And that's not what we want.
I've definitely felt that like disappointment in myself when I am not able to complete something. And I felt that for the first 2 years because I would set up these huge sort of, well, the second year in particular, this big sort of list of stuff I wanted to achieve. And I didn't achieve everything on the list. And then I felt that I'd failed my Ramadan.
Yes, me too.
You know, and then it was actually after I got married, my husband like, why do you have this honking huge list of things to do? Like, why don't you just have, like something that you actually can achieve? Because I was working full time too. And the first sort of year that we were married, I was commuting to work. So I had reduced time. Then the second year we were in COVID. So I was at home still working full time. Like basically the lists I would make myself would be a full-time job, you know, like, cause I just went cray with the amount of stuff I wanted to read. And I mean, I had some health issues and stuff too. So, which alhamdulillah now are solved. But at the time, like that took away time as well and energy. And like, it just wasn't being realistic. Last Ramadan was the first time I got real with myself, I guess, and went, okay. Like you can't.
Right. So you started setting more realistic goals that you could actually accomplish.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think, and last Ramadan I didn't feel, when I finished Ramadan, I didn't feel like I had failed it. Like I felt like it had been successful because I memorized the 2 surahs and I'd learned this dua and I managed to read Quran every day and watch a video with my husband every day. Like I managed to actually do these things that were possible.
Yes. And especially you want to be able to carry on the deeds throughout the rest of the year. So what about you, Queenie? What is your favorite Ramadan routine?
Thinking back to it, I don't think I really set a routine for myself, but I have developed a night routine for myself. Yeah, a night routine where I would recite certain dhikr, like Subhanallahi wa bihamdi like 100 times. And yeah, there's a couple of other things that I recite before I sleep, and even during those nights where I'm just like really out of it, I really force myself to like stay awake to say these things before I knock myself out. So that's a successful routine I carried out till now.
Mashallah, that's really good. And that is the most important thing, being able to be consistent and hold on to it. Because I think a lot of us, and even myself included, thought, okay, Ramadan is just the month where I do all of these things. And it doesn't necessarily mean I do it once Ramadan's finished. And I think that sort of just defeats the whole purpose. Like, obviously, you don't have to pray. You don't have to pray tahajjud every single day. And that's like something that maybe some people can't do every day in Ramadan. So I think, whatever it is, like Stephanie said, reading Quran every day, one page every day, or just like Queenie, making the dua or dhikr before sleeping every day, that is a good habit, and at the same time, you're obviously remembering Allah and you're getting reward for it. So I think that's excellent, mashallah.
Yeah, definitely. And I think I would say that's a huge success in my book.
Oh yeah, for sure, man. Any little small thing that you can do consistently is something to be proud of, So you guys, hopefully those listening in on this episode is breaking their fast or listening to it during their suhoor or iftar. What is on your suhoor and iftar menu, you guys? What are your go-to meals?
It's like this question's made for me. No, but in suhoor, I like to keep it light, even though it's something that it should get you throughout the whole day. I don't like having a full-on meal like rice and chicken. That makes me feel awful throughout the day because you just don't feel like doing anything. I tried that a couple times and it's just like, why did I do that to myself? I just want to be lazy throughout the day. So I just try to keep it light for suhoor and then heavy during iftar, but like I do it in increments. So then I can eat more and digest and then eat more. It's like a strategy.
So what are some examples of things you would eat?
So for suhoor, I like to eat fruits, mostly cucumbers and stuff, because when you eat cucumbers, I find like your breath doesn't get that stinky throughout the day. Hack. And then iftar, I mostly just cook something very quick and easy, like pasta, pan-fried chicken. Sometimes if I'm really lazy, I'll just order takeout food because the convenience of skip the dishes is right on your phone. I mostly crave Asian food though.
That's me too. So your meals sound pretty basic, nothing too fancy. I really like that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't want to go like ham on iftar, like
Right, and especially if you have to pray after, like belching and all that nastiness.
yeah. I mean, like you can't even pray after you eat. Like your stomach is full, and when you like go in ruku, you feel like the food's coming up your throat.
Yes, and nobody ever talks about that, but it is definitely an issue.
It's like the most disgusting feeling ever. It's yeah. If ever I want to eat something, especially for Ramadan iftar, maybe I'll get wara anab or just some really good hummus. Not like those store-bought hummus.
Okay, so you like Middle Eastern styles and Chinese styles. What about Stephanie?
So when I first reverted, I tried to maintain like my regular breakfast, which was usually just like cereal and milk, and that was not enough at all. I am the opposite of Queenie. I need a meal. I've discovered I need a meal to get me through the day. Before I got married, I used to have like eggs and toast with vegetables. Like I'd like to have like cucumber and hummus or a tomato. Funnily enough, I really wanted a lot of tomato for some reason in the morning. And fruit. Yeah, I don't know why, but yeah, fruit. Strawberries were my thing. I'd sometimes change it up. Like sometimes I'd have like oatmeal, yogurt, or like granola and yogurt and fruit. But my big thing was always having a protein, some sort of carb and fruits, because I realized, I guess my main problem with fasting is I get thirsty really easy because I always have water next to me. So my suhoor contains a lot of liquid. I always have a glass of milk. I always have a cup of tea. Otherwise, I'm going to have a headache because I'm addicted. And always have a big glass of water. Since getting married, though, I have discovered the joy of fool.
Oh, the beans. Uh-huh.
Oh, the beans. Yeah, that's my thing. I really enjoy fool with bread. Oh, it's delicious. And and I always eat dates. Like I always have about 3 dates at breakfast. And my husband grew up with his father putting the dates in milk overnight.
Ooh.
And so it makes
wow.
yeah. And it's apparently like this is really, I don't know if it's an Egyptian thing or what it is, but then in the morning, like the dates have sucked up a bunch of milk and the milk has gotten sweet. So you're having this sort of like sweet, milky, datey goodness. It's like a smoothie, except you haven't actually blended anything together. I cannot drink a very big glass of that because it's just so sweet and rich. We sometimes will do to break our fast with.
Mm-hmm.
We'll make it in the morning and then we'll break fast with milk and dates, because the one thing that I actually don't like doing is eating a big meal at night for the very reason that you've both mentioned.
Right.
Going into Raku or Sujood, I think I'm going to toss everything I just put down there. Like it's horrible. Like I can't concentrate the whole time I'm standing in Taraweeh and I'm like, don't throw it up. And that's not a very, you're just not able to connect very well with Allah when you're busy praying for not being sick. So we like to start sort of something really simple, like just a date and milk. I really like making just like a simple lentil soup that will break sort of fast. Prior to COVID, we used to eat at the mosque. So
wow.
Like alhamdulillah, like Melbourne is really, I guess the city's like really fortunate that there's a lot of mosques there where the community will put on community iftars every night. And we used to go and we used to sort of have iftar with the community, and it was 9 times out of 10 biryani. I can never say that word.
Oh, biryani. That's like the typical iftar food at the masjid.
It's not designed for someone who's not Pakistani.
Yeah.
Or Indian. Like I mainly have a little bit of rice with my yogurt. Because it's super spicy, but also sometimes they would have like Malaysian.
Oh wow, Malaysian?
Yeah, and I actually
Malaysian.
really love Malaysian.
Malaysian food is so good, mashallah.
Oh, it is so good. And that's sort of when my husband and I are sort of cooking for ourselves, it tends to be something more simple and light, because we both want to be able to stand up for Taraweeh and not feel like we're gonna die. Yeah, so I'm kind of the opposite, that I want a bigger meal in the morning, but I want something really light at night. And fruit, fruit, like watermelon.
Yes.
And I noticed like some of the community iftars, they actually you'll break your fast with dates and fruit like watermelon.
Yes, the local masjid that I used to go to in Toronto, they would always give out watermelon, some dates, and even like a little samosa thing.
Toronto.
Yeah. And I think that's actually, I really like breaking my fast with something light, because you've gone all day without eating and drinking, and sort of consuming fruits and vegetables that have a high water content. They just are so much more satisfying than here's some dry rice. The purpose or the point of Ramadan, like it's not a party every night.
Yeah, it's not a buffet, you know what I mean? And some people like get picky with things they serve at the masjid. Like you're going there, it's free food. If you don't want to eat that, like go home and eat.
Yeah.
It's not. And it's funny because I can't remember, I was watching something on like Facebook about sort of intermittent fasting, and they were talking about how, they were saying, if fasting works so well, how come Muslims don't lose weight in Ramadan? And they're saying, well, Muslims sort of like they feast at night and then they fast and they feast. So of course they're not going to lose weight. The guy that was talking about it wasn't Muslim, and he spoke about it in such a disparaging way, like we were stupid or something. And it really just kind of hit me. I was like, here's this guy, like he's kind of hit the nail on the head. Like the point of Ramadan is not to feast and fast. It's to fast, and not gorge yourself at the end. It's to really have enough to get you through each day, each night, and be focusing on the worship that goes along with it. Like, yeah, we should probably be getting thinner throughout Ramadan if you're doing it right. Like, and the point is not to lose weight, but what I'm saying is that we've really kind of lost the whole point of it and what it originally was.
Yes.
So I'm trying to move more in that direction and not eat the whole bowl of fool in the morning, but it's a work in progress.
That's great, mashallah. And also, like, a lot of the feast that Muslims break their fast with is oily fried. It's so gross. Like, the first thing you want to understand how Muslims break their fast with oily food. It's the most gross thing that I've ever tried. Because I tried breaking my fast with, like, I think samosas or whatnot. And like, it's just the oil, gross.
It doesn't actually fill you up. Like, and it
just tastes good.
It tastes really good. Like, and I like to have like that kind of stuff every once in a while during Ramadan, but when it's every single night and no. I've always sort of saw Ramadan as the opportunity to sort of get healthy.
Yeah.
Like, cause I mean, I think it's so much more important because you are fasting all day that like, you've got to put good food into your body to get through the day and to make the most out of your nights as well. So if I'm starting the morning with fried goodness and ending with fried goodness, you're just going to be like a couch potato. Just getting so lethargic. And I remember that from my first Ramadan, because the iftars and stuff I was invited to, people were super excited to cook me traditional things. And I had friends that were from the Middle East that, hey ho, here's some oily things for you. It's just all we eat. And I just like, I can kind of understand now why, I don't know, like I would get hungry sooner, I guess. Like it was never crippling hunger, but I would get hungry. Whereas now that I'm sort of eating more healthy stuff, like I don't get that hunger pain. Like my body's got what it needs.
Yeah. I'd rather eat more rice.
And not just like biryani rice. It's like East Asian white jasmine steamed rice.
Yeah.
All right, so enough about food, you guys. Are there any beneficial tips or reminders that you can share with us all?
I think I've mentioned it sort of before, like my main reminder would be that sort of small and consistent is better.
Right.
So, and not to try to do everything all at once. If it's your first Ramadan, even if it's not your first Ramadan, sort of think about what is one thing that I would really love to be able to do that I know I can do with the time that I have, and get realistic with it. This might sound, I'm going to put on my teacher hat here for a second. There's an activity I do with my students where I ask them to count for the amount of hours they spend doing certain activities in a week. You have 168 hours in a week. And it's amazing how much time you spend on things that you have to do, work and prepping food and traveling to and from work and other activities with kids and that sort of thing. You add all that up and you look at the number of hours you actually have left. And I actually think it's something you should do for Ramadan too. Look at the number of hours you actually have left when you take out Taraweeh time, when you take out sort of the regular time you pray, and go, what can I accomplish in the 5 or 6 hours I've got left in a day realistic for worship? And that's sort of what I'm doing now, is looking at, I've got this number of hours in a day for worship. I still need some time for myself too. And I pick, well, I know that I can read this many pages and I can watch a YouTube lecture, and that's it for my day. And that's okay, because it's going to be consistent over 30 days and I'm not going to burn out. That would be my advice, is get really sort of like real with the number of hours you actually have each week to devote to your worship in Ramadan.
Great tips. And what about you, Queenie?
I would say try not to be too hard on yourself, whether you're a new convert or not, because we all have our struggles. We all have our moments where we feel really down, and it's important to celebrate the small victories that you do within Ramadan and focus on the small. Don't focus on what you could have done or what you should have done,
Yes.
because that would take such a mental toll on you, and then you'll be depressed, which is the most taboo topic within the Muslim community. But it's true. We have mental issues within Muslim community in this whole world, essentially. And it's important to take care of ourselves, whether it's self-care, like do a mask every now and then. Just take some time to be by yourself in your room and pray salah, or just make dua for concentration. Like the smaller things, like Allah loves when you ask Him for help. So do so whenever you have the chance to.
Great advice, mashallah. So do you guys have any do you guys have any tips for new Muslimas or converts who are spending Ramadan alone?
For people the Muslims that spend Ramadan alone, you don't necessarily have to spend it alone or find people that are Muslims to spend it with you. You could simply call up or text a friend and say, hey, do you want to eat dinner with me at this specific time when you can break your fast? And if they're complying enough or they're friendly enough to accept that you're Muslim, hopefully they will, you'll break your fast, and then you'll be like near a place that you could pray as well. Like find a place that you could pray as well, like Maghrib, and then continue on to your feast. Or eat first and then find a place nearby to pray Maghrib, because that's pretty important. If you have someone with you or you're close to someone, just video call them and eat with them.
Right.
Or just tell them to watch you eat because you don't want to be alone.
Right, and I think because of COVID, it will be probably more common than actually dining out or going for jams, which you shouldn't be.
Mm-hmm.
And Stephanie, what about you?
I mean, I really like Queenie's advice of sort of, it doesn't have to be sort of a Muslim that you're breaking a fast with.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to do that. My housemates would make a point, even after I moved out, make a point of having a couple of iftars with me. And your friends, your real friends are going to be the people that make that time for you, whether they're Muslim or not Muslim. It's hard to deal with that loneliness. And for me, it was having stuff to occupy my time. So I was always kind of busy, and I guess not really giving myself too much time to dwell on it, but also sort of realizing that you're not always alone. You've got Allah, and He knows what you're going through. Not only how you're feeling, but the fact that you are doing these acts of worship for Him, and there's nobody else around you. Like, I think there's so much more. I think there's maybe almost more blessing in a way when you're doing all of it alone, because it's coming from you. Like it ain't coming from anybody else. And there's no risk or no chance that you are doing worship to impress someone else. You are doing it solely for your sake and because you love Allah.
Right.
So sort of remember that when you're starting to feel lonely, just remember that you are actually doing something far more difficult than anyone who's got a family around them, for example.
Oh, 100%.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us. So, what about you guys? Advice for the Muslim community in terms of converts and new Muslims during Ramadan? How should the community sort of step up or show up for us?
Oh boy. I'm trying to think. Probably what's the most important is try to make your convert, your revert feel welcome. And that doesn't have to be having them to your home for iftar, which is still a lovely thing to do, and is appreciated because it gives a family that they might not have. Offer to take them to Tarawih with you. offer to help them learn the surah that they want to learn, or ask them, is there something that you want to do, but you're not sure where to begin or how to start? But never try to force them to do something. Like, don't put your own ideas onto a convert. We've got enough stuff.
Yeah.
Facts.
We got to learn, or that we know we got to do. Like, just be there to help us achieve the goals that we're trying to set for ourselves for this time. You know, one thing that was sort of really that bothered me was going to mosques for Qiyam, or going to mosque just even for Taraweeh, breaking my fast at iftar, and no one inviting me to sit with them. Like, I mean, alhamdulillah, like, there were mosques the mosque that I usually went to, like, I knew a lot of the sisters at. I would sometimes, because of work, go to other mosques and wouldn't know anybody, and no one would be like, hey, come sit with us. I'd sort of just sit in a corner, eat, and then do my own ibadah until it was time to pray Taraweeh. Or in the case of Qiyam, I would just literally spend the whole night praying by myself while these other groups existed around me. And that, I guess, is the one thing, the community that I wish they would do better, is forget your clique.
Yes.
Like, you know, particularly, I mean, you forget it all the time, but particularly forget it during Ramadan. Like, you know, it's not just reverts that are alone this time. There's going to be, you know, other single sisters or single mothers or whatever. Like, think about what would you like if you were in that situation.
Exactly. Put yourself in our shoes. How would you feel if the roles were reversed?
Exactly. I think people sort of forget. I don't know if they forget, or you just don't take for granted the fact that you maybe have a family, or you've got like a husband, kids, whatever. Some reverts, like in my case, I couldn't talk about Ramadan to my parents. And I mean, I was in a different country, but my parents are now, just 4 years down the road, starting to accept the fact that this ain't a phase. You know, this is here to stay, and they don't understand it. They don't support it. Like, so, you know, just sort of think about the fact that you could be surrogate family or companionship or whatever to someone, and just that little bit of sort of acceptance goes a long way.
Oh, definitely.
And what about you, Queenie? Did you want to add on to anything Stephanie said?
I really definitely agree with the points that Stephanie mentioned about like inviting converts over, whether it's just like a small question saying, how are you? Are you okay? That goes a long way for converts. Like just simply checking in on them every now and then, that would mean the world to us. Because like Stephanie said, people do take it for granted that they have their person, their family. For converts, it's a struggle for us to talk about it with our families. Sure enough, there will be like someone that would halfway accept it, but they will not fully understand your struggles.
Right.
Like, for example, my sister, she accepts me being a Muslim, but she will never understand what I'm going through. And just her acceptance goes a long way for me, but it gets tough sometimes. I would just definitely love for someone just to check up on me every now and then and just be like, hey, are you okay? Like, are you eating on time? Because sometimes we do forget to break our fast. We get too busy getting caught up in whatever we're doing. But yeah, just the simple things.
Right. The simplest things, like, we often overlook, but they are actually the most important things. And really, honestly, like, it's so important to just send a text message, a simple text message saying, hey, sis, like, what's up? How are you? Can you talk? Do you want to talk? You know, how is your Ramadan going? Do you want to schedule a Zoom call and like, let's eat and chat, you know? And besides, like, with the pandemic, everybody is mostly at home anyways, right? Like, adding on to your guys' points. Is that even a word, you guys?
I think it's you guys.
So to add on to you guys' points like that? That sounds so weird.
Well, to add on to you guys it would have to be the possessive of guys. Guys is.
You guys' points? Oh my gosh, that's so weird. Is that even a word?
We were making it a word.
Like you
I
got
mean, you could pass it off as a Canadianism.
No
Yeah.
one will understand, just us.
your guys.
Just
Yeah.
I'm going to keep it.
keep it.
All right, next segue segment or whatever. Okay, we're talking about Eid. So, similarly to the first question about Ramadan, what were your Eid expectations versus reality when you first converted?
You want to?
Oh, it sounds like Queenie is ready to answer first. Go ahead.
It's just, oh, Muslims gathering together to pray. And like for the first two Eids, I was on my period. I could not pray. So I just like, I did not go. Nor did I even know that there was a celebration. Yeah. But then a friend advised me just to go and just to get a feel of the vibes, despite the fact that I'm on my period. And then the third Eid, I think I went with a friend, finally went to pray Eid, and it was a beautiful experience because just sitting there and hearing them do the adhan, it's such a spiritual experience where you can soak up all the iman. Uplifting experience.
I was the same. I honestly didn't know much about Eid. I really just focused on getting myself through the first Ramadan and making sure that I did it correctly. And when Eid happened, I was sort of in the same boat. Like I don't think I could pray the first Eid. Did I go? I can't even remember because I know the first couple of years, because I wasn't able to pray both Eids, I didn't go. And then there were a couple of Eids that actually because I had to take sort of public transport and they happened so early in the morning, I couldn't get there. So I prayed them at home and didn't sort of realize I probably wasn't supposed to do that. But I knew it was supposed to be a celebration, but because I've had to work every Eid except for this I think the last one, actually both the two since I got married, I've taken them off, but before I had to work them. So it wasn't a holiday for me. And I was excited the first Eid because it meant I completed Ramadan successfully. And I was super pumped for that first one, even though I couldn't kind of pray because I thought, oh, hey, like it'll be a celebration. And I knew that like I could go even though I had my period. I just couldn't sort of pray, but then I didn't have anyone to go off with after the prayer, you know, and that is kind of like went from like super high of, hey, I just finished my first Ramadan to super low is everyone that I knew went off with their families and no one asked me if I wanted to go with them.
Wow, seriously.
And I mean, and I was going to work, like I knew that I couldn't say yes, even if someone asked me, but that wasn't the point. Like the point was just to be asked and no one did. And it has been like that. It was like that for basically every Eid except one before getting married. I've only ever had sort of one sister invite me to spend Eid with her. And it was Eid al-Adha that she asked if I wanted to come spend it with her and her family. No, it wasn't. It was a Ramadan one, pardon me. The other one was Eid al-Adha. And that was, this is why I sort of say, like, think about sort of what would you like if you were in that situation?
Right. Put yourself in our shoes kind of thing.
Yeah. Like it's not just with Ramadan. It's also like Eid. Like it's a celebration and we don't always have someone to spend it with. And yeah, like so for me, really, Eid wasn't a special thing. I hate to say that, but
Right. I totally get you.
It wasn't. Like I either worked because I had nothing else to do. Which sounds so sad when I actually say it out loud. Now that I'm married, like my husband and I try to kind of do something to mark the occasion besides just going to the prayer. Like we like try to go out for breakfast, but even as a married couple, like we've only been invited, I think once to spend Eid with other people and have it be sort of like a day, you know.
Right.
I think we sort of forget that it's really supposed to be like a community, not just a celebration, but like community worship. And we think it's just the Eid prayer. And then we forget about it's actually a day. Like it's not like you stop the worship or anything. I don't know if that makes any sense. But
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
it's not, I don't know. It probably just sounds super, super negative.
But it's the reality, though.
It is, and it is your own personal experience. And I really think the community needs to hear more about this kind of stuff so that maybe they would be more inclusive next time.
Yeah, it's I don't know. Eid's one thing that I really struggle, even being married, to get excited about. I'm excited because it means that I've, alhamdulillah, been allowed to see another Ramadan to completion. And that's a really great feeling. And it's a blessing because, like, I don't know if I'm going to get another one, and I feel really good doing the Eid prayer. Like, it's like, you know, cherry on top of the cake kind of a deal. But then the rest of the day just kind of feels like a day.
Right.
And it always makes me think about, I hate to say Christmas, but Christmas was a day.
Right, from morning till night.
Morning to night. Like it was, I mean, we weren't really like Jesus really didn't have a role in Christmas. It was all about Santa, you know, but it was a day, like, and it was a time of family, and we would sometimes maybe do something with the community or whatever, but like it was a thing, it was a big deal. You know, and it doesn't seem, I mean, it is like that when you've got family, but when you're a revert, you ain't got that.
Oh yeah, I totally feel that. Yeah, I remember crying a lot during Eid. And I think it's just sort of like, you know, you do something with a friend, even if it's just one other convert, and you sort of still feel like you're alone, you know what I mean? It's like, okay, I had a nice day, but it was like any other day, and I'm alone now. Because like for people like us, where our families aren't Muslim, it's hard. It gets really lonely, you know?
It's like, it almost kind of rubs it. It always felt to me, it was like being rubbed in my face that my family wasn't Muslim.
Yes, especially all over social media. It's almost like, haha, look at you and look at us.
I'd feel jealous when I'd see my friends and other people going off with their families and, you know, and getting presents and things. And I'm like, my family, you know, like they hate the decision I've made with my life. So like this is, and you don't want to have that feeling of jealousy, like particularly on Eid. And I don't really feel it now so much. And my husband and I are both really sort of cognizant of the fact that there are people in the community that don't have anyone to celebrate with.
Right.
And we sort of would make it a point of sort of some of the people that we would know, we would at least reach out and be like, hey, do you want to do something? And sometimes people say no, like, and fine, like you don't have to, but it's the actual act of reaching out and saying, do you want to do something? Like, even if it's just going for a cup of coffee or something on the day, just to mark the fact that the day is a celebration, put on some nice clothes, let's go have coffee, let's go get ice cream, like, let's do something.
Oh, yeah. I didn't even know that you had to get new clothes for Eid too. Like that was another thing that I didn't know.
Yeah, and I have to be honest, well, I mean, COVID, I didn't go out and buy new clothes. Yeah, like I didn't know, like, hey, you should have some new clothes and you should look super fly. But it's, I don't know, are you really supposed to buy new clothes?
So I think we don't have to buy new clothes. However, we have to dress our best. So looking clean, presentable. And yeah, I mean, if you can afford to buy new clothes, you should. Or just wearing something that looks good and, you know, not run down.
Yeah. And I mean, and I like Eid for that fact that I can put on the nice abaya. I have my dress abaya that I bust out, you know. I have mixed feelings about buying new clothes for every Eid that happens. Because does it become a consumerist thing?
Right. I think it depends though. Because like while it definitely could turn into some consumerism kind of thing, it is from the sunnah, like you can buy new clothes. So I guess it depends on what kind of person you are. But at the end of the day, just look put together and,
Fresh
fresh
together.
and clean.
Yeah. Not like how I usually look, which is shot out of a cannon.
All right. So what about Eid celebrations with non-Muslim family members? Do you include them or do they help you facilitate your Eid jams? If you have any jams.
Is it my turn now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, well, I was going to say, no, my family was not happy when I reverted. And so I didn't start talking about celebrating Eid until actually my husband and I got married. And we will mention that it is Eid and that we went to prayer and that's it. Now, part of it is, we were in Australia, so it's not like I could invite my parents to come celebrate Eid with me, even if I wanted to. Mm-hmm. This coming Eid, I am in the same country, but there's COVID. So we're not going to be able to see them. But my husband really wants to start normalizing it is not the right word, but he wants to invite them to experience Eid or to sort of make it something that we don't just keep to ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, I really would like to send gifts to your parents at Eid because my parents send us gifts at Christmas time. And they send us gifts throughout the year, but my parents are Christian and my mother sends gifts at Christmas. And we have decided not to sort of say no because we're trying to keep some peace here. And he's like, I'd really like to send them presents at Eid so they understand that this is our celebration and that we want them to know that they can and are a part of it. So this is going to be the first time that we incorporate my family in any way into it. And I try not to think about it because it causes me a great deal of anxiety.
Oh, I think it's great though.
It is. Oh. And honestly, when he told me he wanted to do this, I nearly cried because it's sort of, knowing that like my husband who's born Muslim and has a Muslim family, him sort of wanting to do that, sort of like reaching out to them. Cause I know there are a lot of converts that unfortunately have husbands that aren't, say, accepting of their family not being Muslim and they don't have sort of that outreach or that. Like my husband really has that desire to sort of do or give dawah to my family in sort of that really kind of subtle, gentle way. Yeah. So this will be the first Ramadan that, or the first Eid, I should say, that we're going to try to get my family involved in some way.
MashaAllah. I don't know if, how do I say this? Non-Muslim family members, they don't really acknowledge my being Muslim in any way unless it just really gets to a point that they're irritated because I still don't wear my hijab around them. They know that I do wear my hijab, just not with them around. I don't think they even know what Eid is. So I think I'll try to teach them about, I don't know. Before me becoming Muslim, we are really estranged, and me converting into Islam has helped me communicate and understand my parents better. And in a way, me being Muslim has made us a better family. Inshallah, in the future, I will teach them about Eid, just not now.
I think that's actually sort of an important thing to keep in mind, is that when you do certain things as a revert is totally dependent on your situation.
Yes.
And how comfortable you feel. And you shouldn't feel like you've got to move at the same pace as the revert next to you, you know?
Yeah.
Like I probably would have never talked to my parents about Eid or Ramadan or even admitted the fact that I was wearing hijab all of the time if I didn't get married. I honestly just sort of decided I would live two lives. You know,
that's basically me.
Yeah.
I'm like Kim Possible right now.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, totally. Like, you know, I had the life that kept my parents happy, and then had the life that actually was me and actually made me happy. And I tried to maintain that for about the first 4 months of marriage. And my husband was like, this is not okay, he's like, he could see the toll that it takes on you, like to try to maintain those two personas. And it was baby steps though, even when he was like, you gotta be you. Like, we're just now thinking about broaching the word Eid. Like it's sort of, even sometimes my husband will say we should talk about X, and I'm like, no, they're not ready. Like, your family, what they can handle. Me broaching the subject of Jesus in more detail, they ain't ready right yet. So yeah, like, I totally think, inshallah someday Eid will be a thing you can talk about with your family.
Inshallah. Thank you.
Inshallah. So, have any born Muslims ever invited you guys to their home for Eid? Have you partaken in any Eid festivities with born Muslims?
No.
Short and sweet.
I mean, I've gotten invited one time for iftar, but never Eid. Yeah.
Wow, just once for iftar?
Yeah, for my 4 years of
Crazy.
being Muslim.
Wow, that's really sad.
That's really bad.
But I think at the same time, it's kind of my fault. I don't really put myself out there to make more Muslim friends because, like, the one time I did try to put myself out there, besides like meeting Lena, Khadija knows who Lena is. I tried putting myself out there as like this girl. We kind of vibe together on like a Facebook group. Like, it's a Muslims of Vancouver, and I think we had the same vibe going on in a thread. And then I'm like, you're way too funny. I gotta add you. Let's be friends. And then she's like, yeah, for sure. Later on down the line, like, she kind of gaslighted me.
Oh no.
Oh, wow.
So I'm kind of traumatized. So yeah, I think I'm just gonna stay to my bubble for now.
Yeah, as much as Eid should be like a community jam, and if it's not for you, I think just sort of make good use of what Allah has given you. Like, if you can afford it, treat yourself. Treat yourself to delicious meals, a gift. It doesn't always have to be about spending time with others. Like, if you can, you should just buy yourself a gift. Treat yourself to delicious foods. Treat yourself. Like, make Eid be all about you. Like, you spending it with yourself and enjoying it and just doing things you want to do. You know what I mean? So I think, like, really make good use of the things that Allah has given you. Buy yourself a gift, buy yourself some delicious meals, and just enjoy it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll treat myself for a massage.
Yeah. Ever.
I've been invited to Eid twice. One sort of the Eid that happens after Ramadan, and one for Eid al-Adha. The one for Ramadan was a girl that I'd known, I think, just before the time I took my Shahada. And she asked if I had anyone to spend Eid with, and I said no, I didn't. And that would have been my second. And she said, well, we'd love to have you, and I've got another friend actually coming, and my mom's super pumped to have, she loves having lots of people over that aren't necessarily family. And her mom cooked all this traditional food, and the other friend that was invited wasn't even Muslim. Like, the mom literally just likes having people over for Eid. And it was really nice to do the prayer and then be able to, like, get in the car with the family and go home, have breakfast with them and sort of celebrate. And then I went out with her and her friend later. We went to the mall because she was like, we're kind of going to we'll make a day of it, I didn't enjoy the sort of mall bit because they just started doing some things I didn't feel comfortable with. Like, they were smoking in the car, and
Wow.
it's just like, it's funny. Like, we went from being like super Muslim to getting in the car, and like, there was a side of her I'd never seen before.
Like, Ramadan was over?
And basically. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, I'd never seen that in halakas and stuff, but I mean, you wouldn't, right? Like, and that's how I mainly knew her from. So that was sort of, I left. Like, so the day started off like super good for me. being like, wow, my first invite to Eid celebrations. I get to see what Eid is like in a Muslim house. And then I was like, what is this? It's like, you forgot that Allah's watching you.
Right.
You know, like we're walking through the mall. And I mean, the one girl, she wasn't Muslim. So like I exclude her from this. But the other one, like they're checking out guys and stuff. And I'm like, I gotta go home now.
Wow.
You know, I was like, I didn't come to this, you know, this, it's not like Ramadan ends and Eid is like this free for all. So for me, it was disappointing. And like my second Eid, which I mean, I realized totally different Eid, but I was invited at the Eid prayer. I ran into a friend. I didn't realize she was going to that particular Eid prayer. And her family invited me to have breakfast with them, which was their tradition. And that was a totally halal, really lovely experience. And then I did have to go back to work and my friend had to go to uni. She went to school at the same school that I taught at, and we caught the train back. And that was a really nice experience. It was sort of, you know, even though I had to work the rest of the day, it was just, you know, they wanted to debrief about sort of the worship and stuff they'd done up in the lead up to Eid al-Adha. That's what they wanted to talk about. You know, what do we do for that sort of like few days when others are at Hajj? And that really felt like how an Eid should be to me.
Right.
That, you know, you sort of talk about the worship that you've done, whether it's during Ramadan or it's during Hajj time, whatever, and having a meal together. And I don't know, you know, not run around doing harami things. I mean, that's not the point of Eid. It's not like you do all this worship and then
it's all wasted.
Yeah, and you don't take anything from it.
Yeah.
You know, and that's, I think, like we've all been talking about this, the whole, like you do these like small things that can become habits that you can carry on past Ramadan. That's the whole point of Ramadan, is to like not just boost your Aman, but to carry some good habits into the next year with you that don't go away. And it's like, they don't stop on Eid.
It doesn't stop like once the clock hits like whatever 12, you know what I mean?
Exactly. It's not like some magic. It ain't like Cinderella and her carriage turning back into a pumpkin here. Like, you know, I don't know. It's weird like that. You know, being invited was nice, but I also only want to be invited if you're going to do what's right. Like when my husband and I have invited some people that we know now, and we have been invited as a couple to have Eid after Ramadan and Eid with a couple other couples.
Oh,
You know, that was really nice. We've had that happen once. It was really nice just to kind of have Eid with other people that had the same sort of intention. Let's have a meal. Let's talk about how our Ramadans were, you know, and we spent basically the day together. We prayed all of our prayers together. And
Nice.
it was just like almost like a continuation of Ramadan in a way, except we were eating from morning until night.
Right. And I think that is actually when you should feast.
That is when you really feast. That is the day you're allowed to really feast and celebrate. And so that sort of that was probably the best Eid for us, for me. I should say, was being with sort of other couples and us actually having sort of a day of breaking bread together and talking about things that we were really happy about for the past month and things we're looking forward to in the next year.
Yeah, that sounds like a really nice, wholesome way to end Ramadan. So have any of you actually hosted an Eid event?
no.
No.
Yeah, me neither. I hate it.
No, that seems like this is interesting actually, is we're talking about invite us, and then we haven't.
It's actually hilarious.
It's hilarious, but I mean, when we were in Australia, my husband and I did, like, my husband's brother used to live in Australia too. Like, we would take him out for breakfast. And it was just like, that was the only family that we had. It was just the three of us. So, you know, we would kind of do that. And, you know, we would invite people. We didn't host anything. Like, we went to our favorite breakfast nook, you know, but hosting an Eid thing, it's something that I'd love to do. But that also
too
means
much work.
Oh, well, yeah, that's the other thing, Queenie. It's way too much work.
And also, like, I feel like even if you wanted to host something, there might not even be space for it because, you know, there might be converts who live with their parents And it's not like they're going to invite a whole squad of sisters into their parents' home, you know? I mean, some parents are cool with that, but for the majority, I don't think that is easy.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's, I don't know. Like, I don't know if necessarily you need to host something, but even if like communities hosted something, like mosques hosted
Right, yeah.
a day of activity or something, or
Do they have something like that in Vancouver?
They do. I just don't go.
Yeah, me neither. I
Is
never
it-
went.
is it though like more because they would do it in Melbourne, but they're really geared for kids? Like,
Yeah, it's mostly for kids. Like they got a bouncy castle,
Yes.
like some face painting
Face painting.
station,
Yeah, it's the typical.
yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah.
henna.
Henna. Yep, the typical.
The typical things. I know that Australia, like some of the halakha groups would do like like the Eid version of Secret Santa. And which was kind of like it was a cute idea because it meant that those of us that were reverts in the halakas actually got presents on Eid,
Right, which
Yeah.
is very nice.
which was really nice. And we would sort of have like a celebration like 4 or 5 days after Eid happens, you know, in our halakha, we would have food and stuff. So there would sort of be opportunity to kind of celebrate in a way, but not on the day, you know, and I did like those, but it wasn't the same as on the day.
Yeah, we want on the day.
I want on the day. And I guess it's like the one thing that I want to sort of do, and I think my husband's sort of the same, is that like if we know there's someone that's alone on Eid, that invite is made, even if it's just them joining us for breakfast, which is what him and I do. And then we sort of will go out and do something, like we'll go for a walk or something, just the two of us. But like that's something, you know, like I don't think you have to necessarily host like some big shindig.
Right. Like even a small potluck at the park, like a potluck picnic.
You know?
Yes, exactly.
Picnic.
I love
Yeah.
a good picnic.
The great thing about having a potluck picnic at the park is the host doesn't have to bear all the responsibilities because hosting actually is quite expensive. And like, who has money for that? I mean, unless you have money for that, then yeah, go ahead. But generally speaking, hosting requires like a lot of time and you need to have a lot of money. You know what I mean?
Well, you do. And then it's like the cleanup and you just finished Ramadan.
Right. Like, we need a break.
Exactly. Like, and I have to wonder, and I mean, gosh, this is bad. Like, I really should do more research. I mean, like, what was Eid like for the Sahaba, like when the Prophet, peace be upon him, was alive? Like, was it like these individual family units or was it a community thing?
It's interesting to think about.
Yeah. Like, I don't know what the Sinaway is.
Me too.
Yeah.
Like I know little things, like I gotta go one way to the prayer and come back a different way. You know, but I mean, I don't know anything. Like I still really don't know a lot about Eid, if I'm honest.
Same.
You know, even like the prayer, like I can't, like when my husband and I prayed the Eid prayer during COVID, because it didn't happen, and the two of us had to pray it, we were on Google looking at multiple Google pages trying to figure out how to do the Eid prayer, just like for him to lead me in it. You know? We were like, how does this work? We don't remember how many times we do takbir. You know, like, which is sad, I think, in a way that, you know, we know everything to do for Ramadan, but we don't really know what to do on the Eid.
Yeah, because it's like 1 day or like 2 days out of the entire year. So, and sometimes we don't even really do anything for it. Makes sense we are not so familiar with what to do. Anywho, so time to wrap things up. We've actually had a very long and fruitful, I think, discussion. So like I always ask in the podcast, what are some final thoughts? What are some final thoughts on do's and don'ts for Eid and Ramadan, or Ramadan and Eid?
I think that the do's are basically reiterating what I said before, is like celebrating the small victories that you've done. Don't be too harsh on yourself, and try to make the best out of Ramadan as much as you can, because you don't know if you're going to survive for the next one.
Right.
And even though you struggle, Allah sees that and He will give you hasanat for it. The more you struggle, the more hasanat you get. So I say struggle on. I think the more you struggle, the more you take away from it. You appreciate it more rather than like once you got it down, like the moment I got down Surah Ikhlas, it's just like, okay, I don't think about it anymore. But there's a whole meaning behind that surah, and just repeating it 3 times, like if you really think about the deeper meaning, then you'll be really proud of yourself.
I mean, I think my dues are basically the same as what I've said, is be sort of realistic, pick things that you can create into habits in the 30 days that you have and that you can continue on when you're done. But also, you know, like Queenie said, sort of be kind to yourself, you know, like this is new. Like if you're new, you know, just pick a couple of things to learn, pick a new surah or something. Like you don't have to do it all at once. And I think that's important, even if you've been, you know, a Muslim for a while. You don't have to do every act of worship in existence. Allah sees what you do, and he appreciates and rewards you for the efforts that you put in. Yeah, that's, you know, I think a big do is create your own traditions as well.
Yeah.
You know, create your own traditions for Ramadan, create your own traditions for Eid. Don't necessarily rely on other people to create those for you, or expect other people to create them for you. And try not to see that. I know it's a challenge, but try not to see it as a bad thing that you've got to make them yourself and you've got to look out for yourself. I mean, so you can find some joy in creating sort of your own sort of thing and being able to hold on to it for as long as you can, because that will change when, inshallah, you get married, you have a family of your own. Who knows what circumstances kind of happen. So enjoy it kind of while you got it.
For sure. What about don'ts?
Don't try to do everything. A big don't stuff your face with greasy food.
Oh yeah.
You'll regret that. I think don't take the actions others in the community at this time personally.
Yes, yeah.
Because I think a lot of people don't really realize what we're going through. It's not maliciously done. I think people just aren't.
They just
don't realize.
You know?
Yeah. And, you know, don't sort of feel that the success of your Ramadan is getting through a massive checklist of things.
Yes.
You know, the success of your Ramadan is completing your fast to the best of your ability and completing the necessary acts of worship that we must do every day, and doing them with perhaps more care than we usually do. That is sort of the success. I think one do would be to almost reevaluate your goals as you go throughout Ramadan.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I definitely agree with that. It's sort of like go with the flow and sort of like take everything in the present moment, you know, really. Like don't overplan, because things just always come up and you can't control that. So I think like going with the flow, sort of absorbing the present moment is so important during Ramadan and even after Ramadan, you know? So just go with the flow and don't overplan.
I think the only like do that I would say that would be consistent every day would be make dua. Like take that time, that even if it's only 5 minutes before the adhan goes off, like that's a
enough.
time when
More than enough.
that's enough. Like that's when your duas are most accepted, like right when you're going to break that fast. So that is like the one thing I definitely would say do every day.
Right. And dua in itself is an act of worship.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All right, my lady lovers. That is the wrap up of the very first Ramadan Revival podcast. I hope you ladies enjoyed it. And these actually episodes are mainly for sisters who are spending their iftar or their suhoor alone, as I mentioned. And just sort of, I wanted to make these episodes so you can just sort of press play and leave it on in the background. Even though we're not physically there with you, we wanted to make it as if you were a part of our journey and you were sitting here chatting with us. Thank you, Stephanie and Queenie, for joining me. Ramadan Mubarak and Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you
Walaikum
for having us.
salam. Thank you
Walaikum
for having
salam.
us. Ramadan
Thanks.
Mubarak.
اصحى يا نايم وحد الدايم
We're gonna stop this now.
لا إله إلا الله رمضان كريم